All right, today we are jumping into something huge, one of the most incredible inventions in the history of government, really. I'm talking about Athenian democracy. This was an idea born thousands of years ago that totally changed the game for how a person relates to their state. So let's get into it. How did this all start?
But first, let me ask you this. What if you could vote on every single law yourself? I mean, really think about that. No representatives, no politicians making choices for you. It's just you and your neighbors deciding absolutely everything directly. And get this, that wasn't some thought experiment. That was real life for the ancient Athenians. Just picture it. You're walking up this sun-drenched hill in ancient Greece. You find a spot in this huge open-air assembly, and you're listening to these passionate debates. I mean, about everything. War, taxes, new laws. And then when it's time, you just raise your hand. And your vote, it counts just as much as the richest guy in the city. It was absolutely revolutionary. Okay, so how did we get here? A system like this doesn't just pop up overnight, right? No, it was actually born from a society that was struggling with some really deep inequality. See, before all this, Athens was pretty much run by a handful of super powerful aristocratic families. If you were an average person, life was tough. And get this, if you were a farmer and you fell into debt, you could literally be sold into slavery. Your own freedom? Gone. Because you couldn't pay your bills. The system was just completely broken, and everybody knew something had to change.
So the name they came up with for this radical new idea, it comes straight from the Greek, of course. It's made of two words. You have demos, which means the people, and kratos, which means power or rule. So power to the people. It sounds so simple, right? But actually making that happen, that was the real challenge.
And yeah, it definitely didn't happen overnight. This was a long journey. It really starts with a statesman named Solon, way back around 594 BC. He's the one who started to chip away at that old aristocratic system. But the real game changer, the big breakthrough, that came almost 100 years later with a guy named Cleisthenes. He's the one who really laid the final groundwork for what we'd call democracy. So let's talk about these two guys, these architects of democracy. You've got Solon, he laid the foundation, right? He kind of hit the reset button by canceling all those crushing debts. A huge deal. But Cleisthenes, he was the true engineer here. His idea was genius. He completely reorganized society by creating these new tribes that mixed everyone together. Rich, poor, didn't matter. And the whole point was to break up the power of those old noble families. He built a system to give a voice to, well, to every male citizen. And that's a really, really important catch we need to talk about.
All right, so this radical new system, direct democracy, is up and running. But who exactly were the people with all the power? Well, the answer gets a little complicated. The heart and soul of this whole thing was the assembly, the ecclesia. This is where the magic happened. You'd have thousands of citizens gathering on a hillside, debating and voting on literally everything. It was the ultimate expression of people power. But, and this is a big but, that word citizen is key, because not everyone got an invitation to this party, not even close.
And here it is, the number that just might blow your mind. Check this out. Only about 10 to 15% of the entire population of Athens could actually participate. Just a tiny, tiny fraction. So, wait a minute. If that's true, who is really running the show? Wow, this chart really puts it into perspective, doesn't it? Just look at that huge outer ring. That's 85%. A full 85% of the people living in and around Athens were completely shut out. All the power was concentrated in that tiny little slice in the middle.
So who was in that 85%? Well, here you go. First, women. They had zero political rights. Then enslaved people, who did so much of the work to keep the city running, they had no rights at all. And finally, foreigners. Even people who might have lived in Athens their whole lives, they could never become citizens and have a say. Ever.
And this all comes back to how they defined the word citizen. You have to understand, in Athens, it was an incredibly exclusive club. The requirements were strict. You had to be a free man, you had to be an adult, and, this is the big one, both of your parents had to be Athenian. If you didn't check every single one of those boxes, sorry, you were on the outside looking in.
So that really gets at the key difference between their world and ours, right? They practiced direct democracy. Citizens voted on the laws themselves. We, on the other hand, mostly live in representative democracies. We don't vote on every single bill. We elect people to go and do that job for us.
Now, even with all these serious limitations, Athenian democracy still had a golden age, and it happened under one of its greatest leaders, a guy who really truly believed in the power of the ordinary citizen.
And that man was Pericles. He took their democracy to the next level with a totally radical idea. He started paying citizens to serve on juries. I mean, think about how huge that is. For the first time ever, a poor farmer didn't have to choose between working his fields and participating in his own government. It was a massive step toward making democracy accessible to everyone. Well, every citizen. And Pericles was so incredibly proud of this system. He famously said, "Our city is an education to Greece." And what he meant was that Athens was the model. It was a blueprint for the whole world, a shining example of what could happen when a city trusts its own people to run the show. So in the end, what do we make of all this? The Athenian ideal of power to the people was absolutely revolutionary, but their definition of who the people were, well, it was incredibly narrow. And that leaves us with a question that has echoed all the way down to our own time, hasn't it? As we keep working on our own democracies, we have to ask ourselves, who are the people today? Who gets a voice? And who might we still be leaving on the outside, looking in?